Where am I? Where are you is the bigger question. You are in the domain of Nick Shell, the living legend of hair loss. Your IQ is about to raise. You're about to become more intelligent because of this guy on the internet who is not an expert, but he's going to change your life anyway. I received a comment quite recently in my real timeline. We're in different timelines. It's kind of like well, have you seen the newest Spider-Man movie trailer where it is explained that apparently there are different timelines, different versions of Earth? In my version of Earth right now, I received this comment pretty recently on a video I made called My Hair Loss Treatment as a 38-Year-Old Man. Shade of Death, this is the second time in recent history I have made a video in response to Shade of Death. Here's his comment, quote, I'm 19 years old and my forehead looks like the looks like the letter M. So he's talking about Norwood 3. I noticed it the first time when I was invited by the military service, then a random guy shaved my head. I had long hair before. So I noticed that my temples were so high and my hairline shape. Then I started looking better at my childhood images and I saw that what was unbelievable, at age 4 through 9, my hairline was like it is currently, shaped like the letter M. Then full hair started growing, but at age 15 to 18, the hair started falling out like my childhood age. What I can say is that currently I'm not losing any hair, just see small hair growing around a bald spot, and backside also grows normally. I saw you and your dad vlog about hair loss. Both fathers started losing hair at the same age. My father's 43 years old. I'm 38, by the way. And his front hair is gone, but the crown remains, end quote. So let's just unpack this a little bit. What I really want to focus on is the part about how he's saying that at his current age as an adult male that, I don't think he really said, oh yeah, he does. That's the opening line, I'm 19 years old. So he's saying at 19, he's Norwood 3. You know what I should do? I think I have a chart, just hang on. Yeah, here it is. All right, so what he's saying is, in case you don't know, this is the Norwood chart. It's not perfect, but it's a good generalization, and I love generalizations. I think it's important to look at the general pattern to get a good idea of what to expect. So this is officially Norwood 3. This is when you've got the letter M, as he's saying, or we also call it the peninsula. Your temples by default are going to have receded back a bit there. Now, if you're also got some severe diffuse thinning, you're also going to experience a balding spot back here, which I do have diffuse thinning, but mine's not too obvious at this point. It very well could be in the next couple of years. Also, what happens with Norwood 3 vertex, as it's called, is the peninsula will start thinning out, which mine definitely has, but again, the right hair length can downplay that. So he's saying that he's Norwood 3 is what he's saying. And he's saying that at age 19, being Norwood 3 is very reminiscent of when he was between ages 4 and 9. And I will say absolutely, I've seen this with so many guys. What will happen is, and this goes back to one of my hair loss theories, speaking of generalizations. In case you're new to this channel, I've been talking about this for years. I created a theory, I invented a theory. No one else has been talking about this. I'm the only one. I receive 100% credit for creating this theory, and that is that your hairline at age 1 is identical to you at age 35. So what I would say for you, Shade of Death, is just talk to your mother. Say, hey mom, can you give me a photo of when I was 1 year old? Not 1.5, not 9 months, not 2, but exactly 1 year old. And that is a projection of me at age 35. And as we know, age 35 is the age that you pretty much will learn whether or not you're going to be balding, for the rest of your life or not. For me, I'm kind of interesting because at age 35, I was pretty much Norwood 2.5 with diffuse thinning. So basically, I'll be slowly balding, but I'm never really going to be fully bald. So, I'm between 2 and 3. But then I've also got this going on a little bit too. So I'm like a mix between 2, 3, and 3 vertex, actually. But yeah, so because the whole point is this, it all comes full circle from age 1 until 35. Those are the same, right? But in between, the hair is going to fill out some, but once it gets over the arch in the timeline, then you're back to ultimately how you're going to look at 35. So yeah, what I would suggest to you, if you want to have a clue of what you're going to look like ultimately at age 35 and beyond, is look at that 1-year-old photo. My guess is you're probably going to be showing something like that of, at best, Norwood 3, because who knows, maybe you'll stay Norwood 3 at 19. It's happened. Or you're going to look at your 1-year-old photo and think, oh man, I didn't have any hair on top. I was completely bald at 1-year-old. I was one of those bald babies. Well, and you'll see this with even little girls. 1-year-old girls that completely bald. Well, maybe when they're adult, maybe they have thinner hair, but it's not like they go bald. But for men, it's typically a projection that by 35, you're going to be bald on top, if not sooner. And that's why it's important to go ahead and embrace that now. If you haven't already, shave your head with a 0-guard buzz cut. Get used to it. Embrace it. Face your fear head on. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy thinking, when's it going to happen? Just make it happen, and then that way you're already there. You know, there's one of my favorite bands, Matchbox 20, has this song where he says, I am the flame, I cannot be burned. I love that line, and I think that's what happens when you shave off all your hair when you know it's coming anyway. You don't even have to wait for it to happen. Just go ahead and do it now. Face your fear, reinvent who you are, your identity based on that, and don't worry about it anymore. Move on with your life. That's part of your story. Now, I also want to point out something else he said in that comment, talking about fathers and sons. Now, when it comes to hair loss, you can't simply look at your father to find out if you're going to go bald or not. It's not that simple, because think of it this, I can easily prove that concept wrong. Let's talk about a man who has 3 sons. They're now all adults. The father went bald by 30, but you look at his, but now he's 60, and his sons who are now in their 30s, one of them has perfect head of hair, one is mildly balding, and then one is completely balding. You never know. It would have to be 100% consistent between all of his sons to find out. So you can't base it on that. Otherwise, what I'm trying to say is, if that were the case, all brothers from the same mother and father would be at the same rate of balding at the same place in life, and that's not how it is. You can easily have a bald dad and have sons that have full heads of hair, or you can easily have the opposite, because we have to consider the mother's genealogy as well. So you may, and I do believe in a theory too, that there's someone in your somewhat immediate family that is a good projection of who you're going to be balding after. And it may be your father, but it could be your father's mother, because a lot of people think, oh, it's your father's mother. Well, that's not true either, based on what I just said, because you can have many sons, but they have different degrees of balding. So you can't specifically point it on one person for all the sons, for all the siblings. But what you can do is you can say, me personally as an individual in my family, who am I modeled after for my hair loss situation? And honestly, I don't know the answer yet for myself, because I looked at pictures of my father when he was 38, and his hair wasn't like this. He actually, I don't think, had any diffuse thinning at all, but his hairline went back in a different way than mine does. So there's a chance that it may be my mother's father, my Italian grandfather. I actually think, had diffuse thinning and had kind of a Norwood 2.5 situation, but he had this like fluffy hair. He was like, apparently, did a DNA test. He apparently was of like Spanish Jewish descent and like Middle Eastern percent. He was very hairy, like I am. And I think but his hair was like fluffy, so it was really hard to really know. You wouldn't really notice him as a guy who's noticeably losing his hair. He had white hair though, you know. He was born in 1930, I was born in 1981, so he was 51 when I was born. I've always remembered him as having basically a full head of hair, but it was always white. As long as he was alive, and he passed away like 11 years ago, because he died a couple weeks after I got married, and I've been married 11 years. So it's pretty much been about 11 years since he's been gone. But I think there's a chance my hair loss may be based off of it. He may be my connection on that. I'm not sure. But ultimately, this has been a good talk. It's been a good overall reminder of what this channel is all about. You know, it's so funny when people they'll wash up on the shores of my channel so angry, and they'll say, you claim to be a hair loss expert. Yeah, and then they'll name the exception to the rule. And like, hey, if you really know me, it's a matter of I embrace generalizations. I'm looking at patterns. And if you're the person who's focusing on the exception to the rule, then you don't get it. Because if it's true most of the time, it might be true for you. There's a better chance that it's going to be true if it's true most of the time. Wouldn't you want to focus on what happens most of the time? And if not, just say exception to the rule. But those kind of people are like, no, you're wrong. You know, and people like that, by the way, people who are so quick to say that other people are wrong or immoral or ignorant, all that is a reflection of themselves. What they're saying is, I'm afraid, I personally, the commenter in this situation, I am afraid that people will perceive me as wrong or ignorant or immoral. So therefore, I'm going to project my fear of what people will think about me upon other people before they can do it to me. That's all that is. By the way, I'm Nick Shell. I'm the living legend of hair loss. I'm not saying that I have the highest IQ, but I am saying of the people in your life, I have one of the highest EQs, emotional intelligence, understanding that we're not all the same. We all have different motivations, fears, anxieties, goals. And it's a matter of figuring out what that is for every person. And then you can begin to speak the language and understand them. I've been making these videos for years now, and I understand overall what's going through people's heads. And I'm making these videos that seem very specific, but at the same time, they're very general, and they help a lot of guys in the hair loss community. And the hair loss community involves guys who have zero hair loss and are 30 years old, but they're in the hair loss community because they keep showing up because they fear they will go bald. And what they need more than anything from me is these reminders that your identity is not based on your looks as a man. Yes, men judge women that way, but women don't judge us in the same way at all. They totally care that we're confident, funny, that we know what we're good at, what we're bad at, that we help other people. They care about that. And those of us who know that are more successful in life, are more successful in engaging with women because we know that secret. And that goes back to what I just said about emotional intelligence. You can't assume that everybody thinks the same way as you. If not, doesn't that sort of make you self-centered? Oh, everybody thinks just like, no. You judge other people differently than the way they judge you. And that's a very important thing to consider. This is the end of the video. Or is it? Because you're about to leave a comment right here, and that may lead to another video.